All right, welcome to the first thing with GameSpot and Giant Bomb on camera together.
Hello, hi.
How you doing?
I'm John Davison, apparently.
And I'm Jeff Gerstmann.
Yeah. No.
And then the next one, so the big one
came
after that, right?
Yeah, the big one came after that, and that was Kane and Lynch Dead Men, which, heck of a game. Yeah, you know, that game was disappointing. You know, it's the follow-up to Freedom Fighters, which is a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And you know, those guys are certainly capable of making fantastic games.
Yeah.
That game was not a fantastic game.
Nope.
So I said as much. And a lot of this stuff kind of came up again. I guess that what had happened was that the publisher of the game had threatened to pull advertising money. It's probably key to note that that's actually not, that happens a fair amount in this line of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all the time, but from time to time it'll come up, and the standard practice is you stand by your man, make sure there's no factual inaccuracies, and eventually it'll blow over.
The first time it ever happened to me was VMX Racing for the PlayStation 1.
Wow.
And, John Epstein, one of the founders of GameSpot, who was kind of running the business side of things, kind of ran into me in the kitchen. This was back when we were still an independent company, back in 96, 97, around there. And kind of said, like, so that VMX Racing game's pretty bad, huh? And I said, yeah. Okay. And that was that. So, you know, but with a team in place that wasn't experienced at dealing with these issues, it kind of became like this three-alarm fire of just like, oh man, they're pulling money. Like this, what is this guy doing? He's, you know, this guy at the top of our organization is costing us all this money. What are we going to do about it? So, you know, I got called into, you know, fairly intense meetings where, you know, a lot of really crazy things were said at me. You know, threats and stuff about, you know, what was going to happen as a result of this review and stuff like that.
But it ultimately blew over, right?
Yeah, Kane and Lynch, you know, the review went up. You know, there were, like I said, there were some very intense conversations. And then after that, it kind of just went away. You know, things were tense, I think, around the office between that management team and kind of the senior editorial staff. But it wasn't like it was coming up every day. You know, we were kind of basically proceeding business as usual. So I was really taken by surprise when not long after Thanksgiving, like we said at the top, like I got called into a room and basically said, you're terminated, effective immediately. And
as your understanding of why that conversation happened?
It's, well, it was interesting. I think the reason that came out of that was that they felt they couldn't trust me in the role. From my perspective, we did what an editorial team does, and we did what we were supposed to be doing. We reviewed games, we instructed people about the quality of games, and were completely honest. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like there was some big editorial conspiracy. Like there wasn't anything shady happening inside of GameSpot editorial. It was this management team buckled basically when faced with you know, having a lot of ad dollars walk out the door.
A few people would argue that the net result of some of that is actually that gaming journalism ethics are being looked at in the way they never have done before. I mean, has there been any value to this at all in your eyes?
No.
Hey, where you been? You didn't know? Gamergate. Tell me what is up with all the gamer haze. Rules to this shit.
Criticism does not equal harassment. Hi, Zoe. If you're watching this, criticism, not harassment.
In every single step you fucking take, expect us, fool me.
This was, I thought, a really disgusting like trend, which was like they were calling gamers over and they started attacking their own audience. You know what I mean?
I'm going to show you a remix that I just finished this weekend and no one else has seen it. One person has seen it. It's a soundtrack of one song, except I'm doing video games. So it's not exactly a fandom. I'm not a fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this.
Believe it or not, Brianna, 8chan is not all about you.
How do you feel about video games?
I still love them.
Hi, my name's Anita Sarkeesian.
I'm from Los Angeles, California, and my website is neonandchrome.com. And I just want to let you all know how amazing Alex's teleseminar secrets was. It really motivated me to get my own business started.
Anita! Anita! Can I just say something to you? You suck at being a feminist!
Who your daddy, how he taught you everything you know. Gamergate, tell me what is up with all the gamer haze. Rules to this shit, the internet is not to be contained. You know who to expect when you get caught doing evil things. Everyone is watching every single step you fucking take. Expect us, who me, not me. Have you heard of anonymous? Rules to this shit, and the media don't give a fuck. It's rules to this shit, and the media don't give a fuck.
Well, basically, every time we think that we're pulled out of this topic, we're pulled back, in again, straight away. And of course, that topic is feminism and white knight gaming journalism. Recently, there has been a slew of articles that have basically championed the ideas of feminism, championed the ideas of social justice within video games. And recently I was listening to a podcast by a comedian who I like quite a bit called Matt Lees. He's been a gaming journalist for a while now, and he's just started a new podcast called Dark Souls, which is quite good and very informative. And they got into the subject of, shall we say, sexual attributes in video games. And he suddenly went on a small sort of tirade with his friends about how it was ridiculous that there should be tits used to advertise mini-games that you could buy on the App Store. And then they started saying, but it's okay because I've never met anyone who's been paid to give an opinion that doesn't agree with our opinion, which is effectively the liberal slant of... Exactly, and I instantly took to the comments because I can't help myself, and I gave a long response of, well, I think you need to look at the situation more holistically. The fact that social mobility and the way the love industry works in Japan is the reason why video games are as sexualized as they are out there, the way that a lot of people don't really take it as seriously as you think they do, the discussion that's not being had on whether or not it does affect gamers, and whether or not they are just being turned into slavering animals as you think, because they buy a game with tits, whether or not they do that at all. The fact that this is all just marketing. We all know that it's just marketing, that it's just being used as an advertising slant. Nobody takes it seriously. And the response I basically got was, oh, I'm not interested in this discussion. Anyone who calls it social justice warrior nonsense is just, has a wonky opinion. I don't believe tits should be in games to sell them, and if you want to unsubscribe to my Patreon, if you'll contribute to it, you're more than welcome to.
Wow.
And after, what can I do? I posted a small response afterwards that said that's not really what I was saying, but thank you very much, and I moved on. But I was quite disturbed that there has been this sort of growing trend amongst anyone who is even slightly in sort of the realms of professional reviewership, where they completely and utterly subscribe to exactly what propaganda is being put forward by...
they swallow it hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly. Being put forward by developers, being put forward by review sites, being put forward by people who have social anxieties that they want to advertise. And I'm just sick of it, really. I don't know why we're still putting up with it.
Well, so essentially what you're saying is that there's a hive mind now where
yes,
people are afraid to really disagree with each other, because if there's that disagreement, then their ideas will be called stupid. I mean, that's part of it.
It's not even the fact that they don't want to disagree, it's the fact that they don't even want to have the discussion.
Exactly. I mean, Jesus Christ, talk about ivory towers. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the Matt Lees incident, because not too long ago, one of the most recent comments we've received on our White Knight Game Journalism After Hours was some gentleman basically dismissing the entire debate with a snide, "Oh wow, now that's a 40-minute circle jerk I never want to hear again" comment. And albeit there's a good chance that this guy is not listening to this right now, one thing I would like to ask is this. Sir, if two people who more or less agree with one another, imploring their listeners to look at the situation from multiple angles versus letting their biases get the better of them as a circle jerk, then, pardon me, but what words would you use to describe this pantheon of internet demigods who've preemptively decided that theirs is the only way to look at these matters and have absolutely no desire to listen to any dissent?
Yeah.
Because again, the YouTube guy could have been facetious, he could have been trolling, but this Matt Lees fella, that's like the textbook example of everything we've been talking about all this time.
It was almost word for word what he said. We're winning. Nobody is paid to have a different opinion, and that to me suggests a totalitarian view rather than a victory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's incredibly disappointing to see that people still act that way, in that they try and shut each other down instead of having an intelligent discussion. We see that social justice warriors are pretty much the dominant mindset these days, or at least what they believe in is what society itself largely values, so it's just bizarre to see that they try to shut down contrary opinions as if there was no such thing as free speech. It's kind of weird, in a way. Wouldn't you want to hash ideas out so we could grow as a society?
Yeah.
Right, if you believe the truth is on your side, what exactly do you have to be afraid of?
Yeah.
Refers to as. So yeah, this entire thing, it's pretty long. It's pretty long. There's a couple moments in here when you're reading this, and you can see that Aaron is upset. He is projecting. He's very upset over what happened. My favorite line though in this entire thing is friggin' Nathan stupid red pants wearing Kotaku writing Grayson. I couldn't have said that better myself. I really dislike Nathan Grayson as a writer. I feel that he doesn't go to events and then sits back on a soapbox and criticizes those events for being overtly sexist and then boycotting them for that reason while still making money off of ad clicks for writing about how sexist they are. That's kind of how he is. But then again, that kind of sets into part of what the entire SJW aspect of gaming is right now. So all of this aside, all of this shit aside, what this tells us is there's a lot going on behind the scenes in the indie world of gaming right now. And in essence, it's incestuous. And we have to ask ourselves, based on the information that Aaron provided, how much of Zoe's coverage for Depression Quest lately has been from actual merits, you know, she earned it, or people she was fucking to get it.
The attorney claims this is fake. I am going to carry out a search on my Facebook profile for Zoe's name. There it is, and if I click it, you see the URL change to her old username. And let me carry out a search for once during Game Jam. So the search messages, and Zoe's comes up. I'll look through it. And here we have the messages that might be in question. So there it is. I don't know what more proof you could possibly want.
It's a very long and complicated post to dissect, but a lot of this boils down to just the quality of person that she is, and how she's represented as a voice for equality in the gaming industry. Considering the fact that her entire mindset is, oh fuck, don't rat me out, please don't rat me out, I don't want to lose my career. She, you know, he says here, I'm gonna read you this real quick. He says, "You've already done damage control on that front with your tweets. I think, if anything, people might think you're stronger for it," she says. "And the fuck-ups are my own, but I didn't know that she existed when it happened." She's talking about Jason, Jason's wife. "I felt horrible about this for a while, and he can still fire me. The rev share contract isn't in place, and this can fuck over the rest of the team." Aaron says, "I don't think he would fire you because of something the boyfriend he obsessively goaded you into cheating on did." Implying this is the thing, implying that she didn't cheat on him willfully, which I find to be interesting, but I do want to talk about that here in a second. She responds back with, "What if she demands it? What if she goes public? What if she tells the team? Like, this can hurt a lot of people, which is why I wanted fucking more than 5 minutes of getting yelled at and treated like a criminal to just breathe and calm down so I could do it not panicking. Because games as a whole can lose one of its only strong voices for equality because a woman's sexuality at all being public can sink that fucking ship. The harassment would get worse. It's a lot of stuff, just the process." And then he says, "I will ask her to consider the consequences." And then she says, "Ugh, don't tell her to go public. Fuck, just don't put that thought in her head. Jesus fuck." So here you've got a woman who is confronted, not even a woman. Let's remove that aspect, because I don't feel that plays into this, and that's what's going to be brought up quite a bit. You have a partner who cheated on their partner with a married person. The angered party wants to locate the contact information of the married person's spouse and reveal that information to them. And here you've got the cheater saying, please don't, this is going to hurt my career.
A lot of websites are trying to cover this up. You try to talk about these places, you'll get banned. It will get removed. It will get pruned. You're not allowed to talk about this.
So here's the post in question, and this is by Silly Slater. I'm going to read this verbatim, and I really want you to take in what she's saying, and then I'll focus on the really disgusting part of this. So, Silly Slater posts, "She fucking doxed me. Ruined a production for women, refused to contact us, and is currently taking money for a game jam with no start date, no location, and no judges. Okay, here is my story. We ran a group that literally said, any woman come up with an idea for a video game, we'll give you concept art so you can pitch your game, and we'll put all the pitches online. The internet will vote on the best one, and we'll make that game and give the profits to charity. If you get a lot of interest online and want to make the game on your own, you can leave the contest at any time. Literally everyone that was in the top 5 didn't have programming experience, so they couldn't make their own game." She was like, "Why do you expect women to work for free to make games?" We said, well, they get 8% of the money as royalties, and they just have to give an idea. Other people will make the game, and the profits go to charity. Doesn't matter. It's oppressive. She started a fucking Twitter storm, crashed our website, got my personal information doxed, got us banned from Twitter. We email reporters what's up, and they're like, duh, if Zoe says it's oppressive, it must be true. Maybe you should give her money for Rebel Jam, which has no start date, location, or any other information, but totally isn't a scam. This happens at 3 other major publications. We literally said we'd pay her to consult on future projects, and we'd close down the contest if she would explain to us what exactly is offensive. No response. No response at all. Unless a reporter contacted her, and then she's the victim. All this information is fucking online. The pitches are online. We did everything we said, but no online journalist will publish the story. Please vote. Even if we don't raise enough money, if we show there's enough interest, we can get a winner a grant to make their game. I'm literally making no money on this contest. I just wanted to focus on something other than women being oppressed. I wanted to show that they made good games, and everyone said that's not what women in games want to talk about."
And they were very against this. They said that women should focus on education and that women shouldn't be really engaged in capitalist enterprises like this. And one of the issues that we had is, at this point we weren't describing it as the gaming community, we were just discussing it as men in general, that men seemed to be really interested in this because it allowed them to objectively do something. And we said that, we actually asked them, this seems like a really good way to get men. How would you get men involved in a feminist concept like this? And then they laughed openly in our face, like almost in a like cartoon villainy sort of thing.
So apparently Zoe and her friends were on V last night at a bar, and they were apparently watching a live hacking of Zoe's accounts. Right, because people do that. That's a thing. Yep. And suddenly, Phil Fish's website gets hacked. And it gets just... I can't even... legitimately the funniest thing that I have seen in a very long time.
Hello everyone, I'm the head mod over at V and leader of 4chan.org Anonymous. This public execution of Polytron Phil Fish is retaliation for his attempted cover-up of Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Let this be a warning to all SJW game devs out there, we are coming for you. The hack of Zoe Quinn has already taken place as a few days ago, and I've targeted more SJW indie devs today. My next target is Phil Fish. Calm as a bitch, ain't it, Phil? We are V. We do not forgive. At all.
That looks like it was written by a 13-year-old who just found out what 4chan was. Don't even try to tell me that was not written by a 13-year-old who just found out what 4chan was, because I will not believe you. Phil, it's you. You hacked it. We're not dumb.
The threat's making splashy headlines around the world on shows like Melissa Harris Perry.
The threat of violence, all too real.
And webcasts like Democracy Now! And HuffPost Live.
Violent threats for pointing out sexism in video games.
Things got heated, to say the least.
The harassment became part of what's now known as Gamergate. What started as an online spat about the ethics of gaming journalism quickly escalated into a full-blown culture war.
Calling gamers over, they started attacking their own audience. You know what I mean? This was, I thought, a really disgusting like trend, which was like they were.
And over the past couple of days, I've seen gaming websites as well as other websites posting articles that saying gamers are dead. And all of this spawns from one major article, which I'm going to link for you down below if you want to read it. But I am a little irritated by reading this, and I'm a little frustrated by it, because along with this claim that gamers are dead, there's a lot of besmirching, a lot of mudflinging, a lot of slandering of the term gamer and what it means. And I want to talk a little bit about why I don't believe gamers are dead, and why I don't believe we deserve to be slandered in the way that we are.
So out of the midst of the Gamergate tag, another tag comes along called Not Your Shield. And Not Your Shield is basically minorities and women and gays and trans all saying, listen, SJWs, don't use us as an excuse to run away from criticism and to run away from logic.
Gamer, and I am real. And I shouldn't have to justify myself in this day and age of gaming. In fact, I don't. I don't have to justify myself to other gamers. None of us girl gamers do. We just have to justify our race, gender, and sexuality to gaming journalists, to the radical feminist game devs, to the social justice warriors, and the anti-Gamergate supporters. And that makes me sick. How dare you say that we're sock puppets? Ew. My name is Cyfox, and I support Gamergate. And I am not your shield.
A gender issue. Nothing about this is a gender issue. White cis male. I'm a woman. Internal misogyny. Whew. That was close. Are you serious? You're implying a woman can't have her own
You're
opinion?
oppressed. You can't tell me otherwise. You don't exist. You're a sock puppet from 4chan. La 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 la. Blocked. 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 Blocked.
My patriarchy! My patriarchy! My patriarchy! My patriarchy! My patriarchy! My patriarchy!
So when you have a closed Google mailing list called Game Journo Pros, and Ars Technica, Kotaku, Polygon, and probably the rest are part of this mailing group, and they all mail each other, and someone leaks it to a reputable source like Breitbart, what do? Well, you certainly hope that you don't get Kyle Orland, a senior gaming editor for Ars Technica, saying in response to the conspiracy, so what's to be done? Maybe we should just stick to Twitter and boost the signal on this one, rather than our front pages. Quinn seemed initially okay with people retweeting her statement, but then she took down the original Tumblr post, so who knows? Maybe we should get a public letter of support going around, decrying these kind of personal attacks, signed by as many sympathetic journalist developers as we can. Maybe we should use this as an excuse to give more attention to her work. I know I've been meaning to review Depression Quest since its Steam release, which is precisely what they did. And they managed to get it signed by almost everyone and their dog. Literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. Names of people who were probably pressured into doing this. What about when you're Ben Kuchera of Polygon, and you're talking about how best to suppress information posted on another website's forums? What do you do then? Someone signed up for an escapist account to post a thread, Zoe Quinn, or how video game media may have been exposed as a pro-feminist hug box, and you try to get it painted as harassment. So the moderators of the escapist forums will take it down for you. And what do you do when you're James Fudge, the managing editor of GamePolitics.com, and someone leaks your email that says, "Just my opinions here, moderating is a pain in the arse. Look at how this thread starts out. It's hard not to call this harassment, but the bad part is that, because the thread is alive now and was allowed to flourish, doing anything about it plays into his narrative." Exactly. Let that be a lesson to all those who wish to censor information. If you're gonna do it early. But so what, you might be thinking. If you're a prominent member of the video game press, say from Ars Technica, Kotaku or Polygon, and someone leaks one of your emails that shows that you are actively conspiring with other people to suppress information and construct a narrative that's entirely favourable to you or your friends, or, coincidentally, someone you fucked, all you need to do is deny it.
Now, when I took a look at the Entertainment Software Association study, I was a little surprised to find that yours truly, the factual feminist herself, was considered a gamer. Now, I do not recall playing a video game since maybe Pac-Man in a bar in Cambridge, Massachusetts around 1980. The study counted anybody who plays, however occasionally, just simple smartphone games like Bejeweled or Angry Birds. Now, I don't fault the researchers for these findings. I think it's great that the world of games is expanding and that there are more women creating and playing games. But a distinction is in order. There are casual game players and there are the hardcore gamers for whom highly complex competitive video games are a primary life passion. And adult women are not the key demographic here. Researchers at UCLA, they have been studying the pastimes of college freshmen for more than 40 years. Well, for incoming freshmen, 2013, 65% of the girls, but fewer than 19% of the boys said they never played video games at all in a typical week. Now, among the hardcore gamers who play more than 20 hours a week, the ratio of boys to girls is about 7-to-1. Now, this is a huge gender gap, and it has persisted for decades. Now, it looks as if this gender gap is fairly constant. Are there video games that are rife with sexism? Is that true? Do they promote a culture of misogyny and violence that must be dismantled? Well, my answer is no. I looked at the literature on gaming and I discovered that gamers do make a lot of people nervous. Not only are most of them male, but the games they play tend to be action-packed, highly competitive, often violent, and they play them a lot. Now, gamers have long faced disapproval from their own moms, from teachers, and above all, researchers and politicians, concernocrats, both liberal and conservative. Well, for years, games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty were said to cause violence, even though no one has been able to establish a clear correlation. Now, those concerns over violence have sort of died down, especially when the Psychological Bulletin published a major article in 2010 declaring the video game scare was, quote, much ado about nothing. And one graph showed that as video games have surged in popularity, youth crime has plummeted. Well, now gamers are dealing with a new army of critics, gender activists and, I don't know, hipsters with degrees in cultural studies. And these critics are concerned that gaming is largely a heteropatriarchal capitalist pursuit. Why, they ask, isn't it more inclusive? Why must there always be male heroes? Why are females portrayed either as damsels in distress or sex objects? Now, these critics have made some useful points about sexist tropes and narratives, but they do a lot of cherry picking and they ignore the fact that the world of gaming has become inclusive. There are games that fit a vast array of preferences and games with responsibly proportioned and appropriately garbed female protagonists. Yet the video game gender police have become so harsh and intolerant, relentless. Many of them want more than women on both sides of the video screen. They want the male video game culture to die. Now, male gamers as a group do evince a strong preference for games with male heroes and sexy women. Now, could that be because they are male? There is no evidence that these games are making males racist, misogynist, homophobic. In fact, all the data we have suggests that millennial males, and these are people born and raised in video game nation, they're far less prone to these prejudices than previous generations. Now, imagine if a group of gender critics attacked women-centered shows like Oprah or The View or women's magazines for privileging the female perspective and marginalizing men, treating them as the other.
So what exactly are you criticizing men of in the video game industry? Of not being women? Guilty.
I mean, the fans might be tempted to tell them to bug off, find your own shows. And that's what many gamers have done. And most did it with logic, evidence, and humor. But recently, 2 feminist critics received and publicized email death threats. Now, no one knows who sent them. There are millions of gamers, and I'm sure they include a few sociopaths, if it was indeed gamers who sent the threats. But many of the new culture critics have seized on the emails as a sure sign of patriarchal pathology at the heart of gamer culture. According to one academic pontificator, quote, "What we are seeing is the end of gamers and the viciousness that accompanies the death of an identity." Well, I have spent the last few weeks looking into the gamer culture, talking to gamers, looking at the data. I don't see pathology or imminent death. What I see is a lively, smart, creative subculture consisting mostly of tech-savvy guys from all over the world, but also including a small but distinct group of very cool women. Now, if you love games, they don't really care about your age, your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual preference. They just want a game. My suggestion to their critics, stand down.